Hey guys, thank you for stopping by and being a part of Making an Impact TV. Today, tonight, this morning, wherever you're watching it, we're going to be talking about getting your mind right. It's all about your mind. It's all about here. We talked about a few weeks ago how to get your body right. We talked about how to get your goals right. Now it's about getting your mind right. Your mind, like they said, your mind is a terrible thing to waste. And so what we want to do is make sure that you don't waste your mind. Level up in 2021. It's all about getting your mind right. Tonight, joining us on Making an Impact TV, she's a world traveler, international speaker who has spoken to hundreds of conferences around the globe. She's a global influencer. She's also a social worker by profession. She is the daughter of the late great Dr. Miles and Ruth Munroe, where she vowed to carry on their legacy. She's the CEO of Charisa Munroe LLC. She's the vice president of Munroe Global, the president. Wow, this girl has a lot of titles. The president of the Miles and Ruth Munroe Foundation. She's the author of 31-Day Devotional. She's the wife of one husband, Mr. Destry Wilborn. Let's welcome to Making an Impact, Miss Charisa Munroe Wilborn.
Good evening, D'Angelo. You are something else, boy. Thank you for having me. It is such an honor to be here. I am so proud of you.
Thank you.
Watched you go from here to here to here to here, and now we are here.
I know, right?
You know, I got your back. I will support you always. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So, Ms. Munroe, like everybody, I start off by talking about 2020. Some persons, they had a lot of challenges. On some person, they were with the minority. They had some great breakthroughs. So how was your 2020?
2020 was an interesting year, to say the least. It affected me a little differently. I looked at it a little differently, only because the 2020 that a lot of people describe, that they try to explain, that they feel that they're experiencing, was not the 2020 that I experienced, because my 2020, as opposed to it being that year of crises and that year of change and that year of just having to adjust, for me, happened 6 years ago. And so my 2020 was 2014. So by the time I'm here in 2020, it's almost as though I was prepared for this. And it's almost as though, even if I didn't think I was ready, I was ready. And then as a social worker working in the health field, I didn't have that abrupt stop in what was a daily natural routine in life. So I was still able to work. I was still able to leave the house and go out, even though it was just to work and back home.
Right.
Nonetheless, I wasn't stuck in these four walls.
Okay.
And interestingly enough, I had to show up for everyone else that 2020 was hurting and affecting. I had to show up. And so I had to show up and be strong and be ready and be adaptable for a lot of my patients and also a lot of my friends who really was feeling the effects of the entire 2020 year, which in a sense, that's probably where the effects came from me. Being able to watch my friends and watch my patients go through the different strains of 2020, because 2020 was not just a COVID-19 year.
I know, right? I know.
There was social unrest, there was political unrest. And then imagine being the wife of a husband or a man, a Black man, who's also a police officer in America during the year of 2020.
Wow, yeah.
So I almost had to be also available for him emotionally. And didn't mean that we talked about it or how he felt, just mean that I was there for whenever. I had to watch and observe and listen and make sure that I'm showing up for my patients, I'm showing up for my friends, but I'm also showing up and being there for him emotionally, because there was really, really a lot going on. And then here we are in 2021, and it just feels like 2020 has spilled over.
I know, right?
But, one of the things that I'm big on is perspective. And so here we are, 2021, and I hear a lot of people saying, well, 2021 is a continuation of 2020. Like, we haven't really hit 2021. Well, again, in 2020, I think my biggest hold the biggest thing I held on to was perspective and being able to adjust and pivot and change perspective in the midst of circumstances and crises. And so if I look at 2021 like 2020, then of course it's going to look the same.
I know.
I want to have that attitude of, man, we are still here, nothing changing, I'm not changing. Then yes, it's going to be the same. But I'm looking at 2021 as much as possible as, you know what, it's a new year. We are dealing with the aftermath. I'm going to call it the aftermath of what 2020 was.
What 2020 brought.
We're on the upslope, like we're on the up. And hopefully that climb will continue and we won't actually retract.
So true. And you know, even for everybody, for 2020, it was a major effect for some persons. Some people, they were a part of the minority where their companies might have exploded. They might have gotten engagement or got married. And I heard a lot of stuff. You talk about social work, where you engage heavily, but you're heavily engaged in, like you said, you didn't even stop working. You continue to go to work every day. What got you into social work? Because today, you know, we're still in the month of love. If you're watching this week and this Saturday, we're still in the month of love. And we want to talk about getting your mind right. And Ms. Munroe, she got a little ahead of herself, but she was talking about how she had to be there for a lot of persons where she also had to make her mind right. 2020 was her 2014. So she was more prepared for this crisis. But Ms. Munroe, how did you got into like social work? Like what got you all into it?
And so initially, I wanted, and I'm talking initially meaning the early years of life, I wanted to, as a natural young person, you either want to be a lawyer, a doctor, an engineer, a policeman, a fireman. So I was one of those who wanted to be a doctor. And so when I went to school, chemistry, bio, that's what I did in high school. And then when I went off to college, of course, my pre-med was my major. And so I did pre-med for 2 years, wanted to be a doctor, eventually wanted to be, you know, possibly a surgeon. I just however, health was always a part of my passion. I always liked helping people who couldn't help themselves. The older, the middle, the kid, the child, someone who looked like they were sick. Also, whoever was oppressed, depressed. Like I just wanted to be able to help. And I loved medicine. I loved blood and I loved trauma. Wow. So like, yeah, I'm telling you.
That's bad.
So I spent the majority of my like internship or like when I was transitioning 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, during my summers, I would go to doctor's hospital emergency room.
Wow.
And those were my internships and then eventually my job before I went off to college. I loved it. Like I loved that fast life. But I also loved, you know, you come in and you see hands hanging off and shoulders hanging off and sharp eyes. And
I would have never thought about that from you though. I thought you'd have been the squirmish type when it come down to being in the hospital.
Oh, well, you know me, I like adventure, right?
Right.
And so anyway, so I took that all the way to college. Did pre-med for 2 years, did good at bio, good at chemistry, but I could not do physics to save my life.
So that's where the story comes in.
There's even another story to this, but I'm going to save that for another platform when it comes to this. So I just couldn't understand physics, but you know, that's neither here nor there, however. But of course, when you go off to college, you also have electives and you get exposed to other subjects and other topics and other classes. And so as I'm going through these other classes like sociology and psychology, I was realizing that, man, I was really loving the concepts of those and the fact that sociology and psychology is about the human mind and about people's behavior and the way they think and how that affects their outcome and the decisions they make in life. But then also that interaction that you get to have with your clients in this regard, as it pertains to helping them go from, you know, one level of their life to the next.
Okay.
And then I started realizing that, man, I'm not going to have that opportunity to be able to interact with someone on that level one-on-one if I just want to be a surgeon. Because as a surgeon, normally the person is on your table.
So true. Right.
Reactive.
Right.
They're sedated. Therefore, there's no talking.
Okay.
There's no anything. You say 2 words to them. See you after this. Or count to 10. You know, count to 10. or you're just telling this is what's
So
going to
like
happen.
you was ready for that life.
And that was it. And then after that, how are you doing? How are you recovering? And then, so you would have spent 6 hours with them, not saying anything to them, but yet you're all in their insides. And then you just want to know how you're doing after that. And then that's it. You may see them one more follow-up appointment after that, and then you never see them again. Now, yes, there's a reward in knowing that you may have saved their life, or you may have provided a treatment that made their life a little better, but it was more, it wasn't going to give me enough. So make a very long story short, in my junior year of college, I switched. I realized that this isn't what I want to do. Like, I'm all about the mind. I'm all about how I can get you to think differently, and how man, what goes on in our head really affects our attitude and our behaviors and our kind of social environments. And so I switched from pre-med to social work. And let me tell you, it has been the best decision of my entire life. And I have been doing social work since then. That was back in 2000. And I've been practicing as a social worker for the last 15 years.
Okay.
Went ahead and got my license as a clinical social worker because I wanted to be able to really and truly get down to therapies and really be in a position to where I can diagnose if I wanted to, and really be able to have those one-on-one individual interactions and relations and counseling sessions with patients, and be certified in it. And I've been enjoying it as a social worker. And the one thing I realized is, as a social worker and someone who's interested in the mind and the heart of people, I can do that on so many different platforms. So, like I said, I was in the health field in my entire social work career. So now I'm transitioning from the direct health and medical field to a more socially related field, where I'm able to take a lot of the lessons that I learned working with my patients, or the information and research that I learned and that I'm still learning right now. And I want to make people now more aware of their mental health and what is mental illness and how our mental health really affect who we are and who we become and how we show up.
So true. And you said so much things, and that's the thing a lot of persons deal with. They deal with the mental health. And listening to you, I hear that's your secret sauce, because I've heard you speak a lot on different platforms, and I see why you're so engaging to even not just your patients, but to the audience and the persons who are sitting in those seats in the audience. Your persons after those sessions grasp what you're saying, again, because you take to their mind and you want to empower their whole livelihood and whole lively being. And so, Charisa, one of the things I notice a lot of persons battle with is Christians, and you said it before, like you wanted to get into therapy, but Christians battle with therapy and people and going to therapy and therapists. So how is that? Like, how do you explain if I'm a Christian and someone tells me go to therapy? Because there's a stigma when you say you go to therapy. So how do you like weigh that out?
So I'm going to try and answer this question as humbly and as because the way it's interesting that you gave me these questions beforehand, correct?
Right.
And you had their Christianity versus
therapy.
And I was ready for this. Let me tell you why. Because the way that even the way that you stated it, D'Angelo, lets me know that there's still a misconception.
So true.
Because versus usually means either or sometimes versus is one against.
Right. So true.
So in this case, it was like Christianity against therapy, as though the two are fighting, as though they can coexist, as though it can be both and Christianity and therapy has nothing to do with therapy, and therapy has nothing to do with Christianity. Okay, I'll ask you a question. If you get sick right now, if you get appendicitis, your appendix is about to burst, and someone says to you, anyone or you, the first thing you think about is, I'm going to go to the doctor, correct?
Right.
As a Christian, why do you go to the doctor?
Because I need to be healed.
Okay. But then I can say, but isn't that Jesus's ultimate, one of his ultimate?
I see where you're going. I see you trying to trap me on that one.
Okay. Isn't that one of his ultimate
functions?
Okay. So it's no different than just how you go to the doctor, whether it's a primary care doctor, whether it's you're going to see a surgeon, whether it's just how you go to the doctor, just how you go to the dentist for the health of your physical body, just how you go to the dentist for the health of your teeth, just how you go to the optometrist for the health of your eyes, is no different than going to a counselor or a therapist if needed for the health of your mental state.
Right.
It's the same concept. And so I think the stigma, however, and people for years, centuries, there's been a stigma with mental health and mental.
It's been a major stigma, stigma.
And it still is to this point. It still is very, very. Now, I think it's getting a little better. It's getting a little different now because of the way that things are shifting, especially after 2020.
Okay.
But there's a very negative stigma when it comes to mental illness and mental health. And I think part of it, number one, is ignorance. Okay. People don't understand.
Educate us, us wise one.
People don't understand the difference between mental health and mental illness. And they tend to interchange the two words when they're very different. But I think when you don't understand something, you abuse or you misuse or you don't use at all. And so here, there's been a lot of misuse or misabuse or lack of using the resources because people don't understand how important mental health is and how important mental health is to your physical or mental well-being.
Okay.
They're very, very, very different. And so whether I am a Christian or not, whether I am Hindu or not, whether I am Islamic, Muslim or not, whether I am Jehovah's Witness,
atheist,
whether I am atheist or not, if I have a mental disorder or a mental illness, or my mental health is not to the ideal level where I want it, or I just want to make sure that my mental health remains at an optimal level, I'm going to do certain things to make sure, or I'm going to access the resources that are available.
Right.
So the resources that are available are multiple. One of those resources just happens to be psychotherapy or counseling.
Psychotherapy. That's the stigma that people get.
Okay. So psychotherapy is just exactly that. It's just the study and treatment of the psychological aspect of life. And the psychological aspect of life just has to do with the mind. And that's it.
Right.
So again, people want to overcomplicate and just make things bigger than they are, when really and truly they're not. So as soon as someone says you need to go and see a counselor or a therapist, they automatically think I'm crazy, or is associated with being insane or being psycho or
cocoa buffs,
or being cuckoo, like we say in the Bahamas, but really and truly it's not. It's not. It's just a treatment like anything else.
I got you. So what you're saying is most persons deal with it, but they don't want to get the treatment. And so that leads, before we go on, that leads me to my next question.
Well, hold on. Even before your next question, to further answer your Christianity versus therapy. So what happens is, as therapists, we actually incorporate the fact that you have a faith, the fact that you have a belief, the fact that you have values, whatever your belief system is, we incorporate that into the treatment plan. We incorporate that into the conversations. So if you believe in a God, if you believe in whoever it is you believe in, we incorporate that level of faith to help you get better, to help you feel better. If you're an atheist and you don't believe God at all, then we know that. So as a therapist, we know not to even go there to begin with.
Okay.
Now you have therapists who are Christian-based therapists who have that faith and belief themselves. So it allows them to really and truly be able to incorporate those scriptures, or incorporate, hey, if you believe in this strong faith, if you believe in this thing, or if you believe in this person or this higher power, then you have that, you can encourage your patients to have that to reach for, and to reach to, and to rely on, and just to use it as a foundation and a base for getting better, for feeling better, for changing perspectives, for thinking better.
Yeah, because a lot of persons, if they tell you, hey, go to therapy, because a lot of people need therapy, relationships need therapy. As an individual, we all need therapy. And one of the reasons why I put making an impact together and naming this, getting your mind right, is a lot of persons are afraid to seek therapy. And so sometimes I feel like we have to bring it to them, remove all the layers and stuff, and reveal the truth. Because really, here in the Bahamas and on a global scale, when you hear therapy and you hear going to say the word for me, a psychotherapist.
Psychotherapist.
You automatically think about going to the nutty house. So me telling my friends, hey, I just went to a psychotherapist yesterday. Like, it leaves a stigma, first of all. But I enjoy how you say how you involve faith. You involve how to believe, because a lot of persons, that's the thing they lack. They lack the belief of. And so, is there a cure for anybody that's dealing with mental health disorders?
So mental health disorders and mental health are different. So you have mental illness / disorder, and you have mental health. And I want to just talk on those, because when we talk about mental health, we actually are referring to the entire emotional and psychological state and social well-being of who we are and how we feel about ourselves. Then by the time you start talking about mental illness, now you're getting into the disorders that may be affected by your mental health or by your physical health.
That's deep. I love that.
Okay. So the mental health is how resilient you can be. Like, how resilient you may be as an adult or as a child lets me know where you are, where your mental health is. So someone who has a high mental health status means that, emotionally they're stable, psychologically they're stable. Then that means that they may do well from a resilience standpoint. They may do well from a recovery standpoint if they went through any stressful period, or if they went through a trauma. Someone whose mental health is not so optimal and not so high on the scale may be slow to recover from grief, may be slow to recover from a depressive episode, may not be as resilient as someone else whose mental health is higher. So when you start talking about mental illnesses, you're talking about, as some of the major ones are depression, anxiety, OCD, PTSD. Those are your mental health disorders, and those can be genetics, they can be hereditary, they can be based on the on environmental status. They can also be based on, for instance, you have children, and I say environmental because you have children who are born with certain mental illnesses because of maybe the way the mother was during her pregnancy, whether she was on drugs or smoking, and those sort of things. So mental illness, not everybody has a mental illness.
Okay.
Not everybody will have a mental disorder, but people will struggle with different levels
of mental
health.
Okay.
My mental health, even with the two of us right now, my mental health may at one point be better or be different than my mental health from 28 years of age to then at 40. Then at 60, it may change because, so now at 60, my mental health may be a little different because now I'm struggling with having depression. Gone from not necessarily depression, but just having to adjust from being 20, not being 20 anymore, not being 40 anymore. Now I'm menopause.
Yes.
Like, oh my God, I don't know what to deal with this. So just how we take care of our physical health by exercising, by eating right, by seeing our primary care doctors annually, by making sure that we are only listening, we are only making sure the positive things come into our being, whether that's what we hear, what we see, what we taste, what we feel, what we allow to just get into our eye gates, whether or not we are using those things to make sure that our physical health is fine. Well, it's the same thing with mental health. Mental health, you do certain things to make sure that mentally, psychologically, emotionally, you are at your best. So mental illnesses, depression, anxiety, research shows that there is no cure per se. Like there's a cure for a broken arm or a broken wrist or the cure for a pink eye. You just do surgery or you take this medication, you do certain things, and that particular disorder or illness is gone. Mental illness doesn't have that cure. However, there are treatments that can help a patient or help a person manage the symptoms of their mental illness.
Okay.
Mental disorder. So there are symptoms of depression. There are symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. There are symptoms of anxiety. There's symptoms of obsessive compulsive disorder. There's symptoms of bipolar. There's symptoms of schizophrenic that treatments are used to manage and possibly reduce those symptoms to a level where the patient can still live an ideally normal life. But they may not be necessarily cured from that disorder because there are always going to be triggers. There are always going to be the possibility of what they call the relapse. And so, yes.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things I do want to say is, and I want to go back to the question before, kind of, sort of, because when you're talking about the different therapies, one of the therapies, believe it or not, in mental health world that we use is treatments. So one of the treatments, so you have various treatments, okay, for mental health. And some of those treatments include, so the number one being psychotherapy.
Okay.
Then if in combination with, or instead of, somebody therapy may not be the only option, or they don't want that option at all. So then you have the prescribing of medications as treatment.
Okay.
Or you have individual counseling, or then you have support groups. Then some of the other treatments that they use, believe it or not, D'Angelo, is exercise, mindfulness, meditation, yoga. So there's a reason why I'm mentioning these, because if these exercise, yoga, meditation, mindfulness, hospital program, if these are on the same list as psychotherapy or counseling or seeing a therapist for the recovery of mental illness, just as they are in physical health. In physical health, you exercise, you watch what you eat. And exercise includes yoga. In Christianity or in the spiritual world, we do meditation. And like all of these are therapies in our social life, in our physical life, in our spiritual life. So I'm trying to debunk the myth that people have around not wanting to see a therapist as part of a treatment plan. So just as you would take, is no different than you telling me, I don't want to see a therapist, or I don't want to see a counselor, but I'll take prescription medication. Well, why would you want to put something foreign into your body, or put all of what I'm going to call for a second trash in your body, when you can just use some of these psychotherapy methods or psychotherapy models that can actually help first?
Right.
Use those first versus no, I'm just going to pop a pill because it's going to.
And then that's what happens to a lot of persons. They rely on these pills. And that's where the whole cycle, once you start to get on these pills, and that's even a big stigma too with the pills and stuff too.
And the reason why people rely on the pills too is because sometimes the pills does the effect of not making, sometimes it allows you not to feel. And people don't want to feel.
Okay, like a depressant.
Differently, with psychotherapy and counseling, a lot of those models use they make you feel.
Okay.
They make you feel your feelings. They make you feel your emotions. They make you talk through what's going on. They make you do certain things that require you to have to sometimes feel and touch the fire in order to see where you are and what this pain is really telling you. And so they prefer to take a pill because the pill is going to make them sleepy. It's going to make them numb. It's going to make them, just kind of have this euphoric high for a second, to where if they was feeling depressed, they don't feel that anymore.
Okay.
So they have to keep taking these medications to feel that way. So therein lies some of the difference.
All right. So if you are joining in on Making an Impact TV, we are talking about getting your mind right with Miss Therapist. She's given us a whole mouthful on therapy and treatment. And I think a lot of persons do rely on the pills and they move away from the therapist because, like you say, they walk you down. If you watch the movies, because I mean, I've never experienced going to therapy, and I've only seen with the movies or heard from other person's experiences where they walk you down the memory lane. And I could only imagine that some people want to escape memory lane because there are some things that happen in the past that they try to block out, and that's why they use those depressants. And if you're listening, she said a lot about how mental health, and I love how you differentiate mental health and mental health disorders. Mental health being just like your well-being, like how you take care of your body, you take care of your mind, because a lot of persons, they don't take care of their minds. They garbage in, garbage out. They, just like how you said, they put trash meds in, they put a lot of garbage in their mind. So if you're watching Making an Impact, there's a lot of treatment out there for you guys. If you battling with mental health, there is treatment. And if you're battling with mental health disorders, there's also treatment that you can find. Ms. Munroe, does mental health disorders or mental health illness deserves more attention?
It does. It does. And it goes back to my previous statement. The reason why people do not utilize the resources available to them to make sure that they're living the most ideal and optimal level of mental health is because of ignorance. It's because the lack of information. It's because the lack of awareness, the lack of the knowledge of what mental health is and what mental illness and disorders look like. And that lack of information is what, like I said, it's what making people either misuse, abuse, or not use at all.
Okay. And one of the things I want to jog back, I know you said that it does need attention. And one of the things I want to jog back, because I said this in our previous episodes before you were on with other guests. I said one of the reasons I'm not talking about relationships, because I want to make sure that we get you right, the viewers. And Ms. Munroe said some keys. Sometimes people born with these mental health disorders, I think you said, because disorders can be genetic or hereditary, where it can be passed down. And so one of the things, as if you're seeking a mate, you want to make sure that you check people's background, because sometimes people can look good on the outside, right? But on the inside, their minds, and like she said, their mind can be all screwed up because they had past trauma, they had past hurt, or they might be taking antidepressant, a lot of stuff. So looking on person's background, she said a lot. She said it can be genetic. So sometimes we get ourselves involved with some people who are just plain old, some crazy. Miss Munroe, and I know we're covering a whole lot today, especially with getting your mind right. And you said it before. What are some triggers that cause some people to get into an unhealthy state of mind?
And I want to double back to what you said before. Because I deal with the population that's mentally challenged or that have mental illness or mental disorders or whose mental health is not the best, I'm also able to speak to them, to speak to that population, but also I'm able to defend them. And not because someone has a mental illness or a mental disorder means that they cannot live a relatively good quality of life. It does also not mean that they cannot have or sustain a relationship with others, whether that's peers, whether that's just a friendship relationship or whether that's a romantic one. However, it is good to know what you're getting yourself into, like you said. But someone who is dealing with a mental illness or mental disorder, to be very honest with you, there is a higher percentage of people who have a mental illness or mental disorder than you think.
I wanted you to say. I was trying to pull that out of you.
Yes, there is about 85% of people, and actually maybe a little lower, about 65% of people.
I think all of us has a little cuckoo inside of us, you know.
But even that alone, like even that, because mental illness and mental disorder does not mean crazy.
Okay.
It does not have to mean cuckoo.
And that's what I want you to explain for us.
There is a strand, there is a whole array, a whole gamut of mental health illness and mental health disorders. Someone that's anxious, that's dealing with anxiety and depression, they're not crazy.
Okay.
Like, I think even that word is so misused. They're not cuckoo. That's just one of the mental illnesses that's their disorder, that with therapy, with treatment, with medication,
right.
That they once treated and managed, they can live with it.
Okay.
Now they may have triggers here and there, but they can live with it. But most people who are diagnosed with a mental health condition can experience a relief in their systems and then live a satisfying life.
Okay.
But an effective treatment plan can include medication, psychotherapy, support groups that can actually help them in their relationships, that can help them in the work world, that can help them in the play world and how they interact with other people. Nonetheless, treatment and management is going to be so important. So some of the triggers are different based on the mental illness.
Okay.
But if I am to put it generally, people are triggered by their immediate environment. They are triggered by losses, grief and loss. They can also be triggered. So a lot of mental health disorders and mental illnesses can also be triggered by poor physical health. So someone who isn't taking care of their body, who isn't sleeping enough or sleeping well, who doesn't have a balanced diet, who isn't exercising at all, like that can affect their mental health, which can lead to mental illnesses like depression or like anxiety or like post-traumatic stress disorders. So it's important that we are taking care of our physical health, because depending on what our physical health looks like can affect what our mental health looks like, which can also lead to mental illness or mental disorders.
All right, so I was on the right track by having those two, because it's 2 sessions before you, we were talking about physical health, and listen how you tying it all in together, but mental health, because a lot of persons who deal with overweight then goes and slips into depression, or they, like you say, they have an eating disorder or certain things, and you talked about the triggers. Now, how does someone stay balanced? I know that's the key, like being balanced, being well balanced. How does someone stay balanced?
And I'm so glad we are talking about balance right here, right after you mentioned, I'm talking about mental, and you had the speakers before talking about physical. We are one being, D'Angelo, but we have these different parts of us.
Okay.
So there's a physical, there's a mental, and there's a soul or spiritual. Those three make up you and me as a total being. So you can't separate them. You can't cut my mental away and then just leave physical and soul. You can't take away the physical and think that I'm going to be a person without the mental, without the soul. Like, all of those are connected.
Okay.
So I went to Oral Roberts University, and this was when I first believed and understand in the whole you, mind, body, spirit, or mind, body, soul. Those three make up the entire whole being of who we are. And it is important that we are taking care. It is important that we are aware of our physical, our mind, our body, and our soul. and doing whatever it takes to make sure that the health of our mind, of our body, and our soul are as high as possible. Now, is the health of those three aspects of our lives going to be different at various times of our lives? Yes. Because let me tell you, the more information you get, the more knowledge you get on your physical, then you're going to start to do things that takes better care and that increase the health. The more you get, the more you are aware, or the more you decide to make decisions on, you know what, I'm going to do A, B, and C to make sure that my mental health can be better, then you start to make those changes. But we can't just do one and leave out the other. We can't just focus on exercising, but don't want to make sure we're reading the word or praying, but we can't want to do those things and not making sure that we are watching what information that we're listening to so that we don't have these negative thoughts.
Okay.
But yet that we have positive thoughts. And so the balance between the three of those are important for us to be balanced. So too much of anything is bad. Too little of anything is bad. So I am going to focus on my mental health because that's going to affect how I show up physically. I am ultimately going to really focus on my spiritual because that's going to affect what I'm even able to do in the mental and the physical. You understand that balance? And so everybody's going to be different in this world. So everybody's going to have to find what their balance is to make sure that their mental health is stable, their physical health is optimal, their spiritual health and wealth is perfect for them. Everyone has got to find what that balance looks like. But we have to make sure that we are remembering that I just can't focus on my physical.
You take the words because most persons, like I think 80% of people around the world mostly focus on the physical, going to the gym.
But I'll tell you why.
Healthy.
And that's because the physical is the only thing that we can see.
Drop it.
Because you can see your physical, it's easy to do physical. Then your mental is the one thing that we can feel. So sometimes people run away from feelings because not all feelings are good. Not all feelings feel good.
Okay.
Pain doesn't feel good. Hurt doesn't feel good. So they do what they can see to see if they can compensate for what feels bad or what seems bad for them in the moment. And then spiritually, again, that's another struggle because people can't see belief, they can't see faith, they can't see God, and then they don't believe in God, then that's even worse.
Yeah, that's a whole another story for another day.
But, the getting an understanding of how important these things are tied. Let me tell you one thing. In the mental health world, if you go to a doctor and you say, I'm having hallucinations, or I'm hearing voices, or I'm having this pain and I know what it is, or man, I've been feeling really sad and I've just been not sleeping. I haven't been sleeping, and I've been sleeping too much, and I've been eating so much, but I'm not getting full. I've just been feeling down. Your primary care, your doctor is not going to automatically think something wrong with her mental health. She may have something going on. The first thing he's going to do is rule out any physical issues, any physical conditions. Because sometimes some of the symptoms that we may be exerting can be as a cause of a physical issue.
Okay.
And then you deal with that physical issue, and then you realize that person is fine. There was nothing wrong with them mentally. And so sometimes, so you understand how they're even in medicine, let's say you go to a therapist first and you tell the therapist, I'm having these feelings, and you feel that you want to go to a counselor because you're sad, you're not eating, you don't have an appetite, you're just sleeping too much, you have headaches, you think you're depressed. It is the responsibility of that therapist to ask you, have you seen your primary care?
Okay.
Because you may not be depressed. You may not have a mental issue. Your mental health may be fine. There may be something physical.
Okay.
They send you to your primary care, and sure enough, there may be something going on with you physically.
All right.
So you see how sometimes even in that balance,
It's all about the balance. It's all
it's,
about the balance.
it's all about the balance.
Right. And
And so it's important. Go ahead.
so, no, that's going to take, guys, if you're watching Making an Impact, you're tuning in, Miss Munroe is dropping facts, and because a lot of persons, they are unbalanced. And I like how you said it's all about the balance and all about seeking help and trying to get balance. Before we close, do you have anything else you want to share with the viewers here today?
No, I think yes, I will say this. And this is where I'm moving into. I was in the direct patient world for a while, but I'm wanting to move into the platform that allows me to teach and educate and inform on mental health and mental illness and mental disorders, and how it is important for us to make sure that we are taking care of our top before we are even concerned about our bottom. Because especially when everything that we do, our behaviors, our attitudes, our decisions are based on what goes on in our mind. It's based on the health of our emotional state. It's based on the health of our psychological state. It's based on the health of our mental state. It is important that we are we're in a world, D'Angelo, where people are big on what you see. And so when you go to social media, it's all about what you see. Celebrities, it's all about what you look like.
It's all about
what you look like, what you wear. What you look like, what you wear. How small you are, how thick you are, how naked you are, how beautiful. Remember I told you, those are the first things that people do because it's the first thing that you can see.
Okay, so a lot of persons pay attention to the sight, to the see.
But they have no idea if they sat down with these people, from celebrity to the most beautiful person who does nothing. If they look at them and actually sat down and talked with them, they would be surprised how unstable, unhappy,
so true,
discontent, and dissatisfied, and just totally messed up and broken these people are on the inside.
And that's why you have so many celebrities commit suicide, because when you peel back the layers, there's so many unhealthy habits and, like you say, unhealthy mindsets that's going on,
And this is why suicide is actually on the uprise now.
Okay.
Because people are not taking care of their mental. They're not taking care of their feelings. They're not managing the way they're feeling. They're not even managing their emotions. And so I want to be able to train and teach and encourage people and inform and educate on mental health and how important mental health is to our physical, how important mental health is to our spiritual health, and how important mental health is to the community and the world, and how important it is to us for when we show up.
Right.
I don't want to just show up in the physical. I don't just want to show up looking good.
I love that.
I want to show up feeling good. And you know what? I want to show up feeling good even when I don't feel good. Because there are going to be times when, you know what? It's okay for you and I not to feel good. You and I went through a major state of loss a couple of years ago. And I say you and I because...
Yeah, I know.
We share a family. And that was a lot.
Right, it was.
That was a lot for us. For me, I can speak for me per se. As
for the family.
As high of a state my mental health was, it was still a lot to go through and to deal with. The resilience was a little easier for me because I'm able to manage and make sure that my mental health before that was at an optimal level. But there's going to be seasons when, I just don't feel happy today.
Okay.
Or I'm having a moment where I'm really low today. But we got to know that that's okay. Deal with that, but then get out of that. Don't get stuck there. There are some people that unfortunately get stuck there.
And I could speak to something. I know last year I had a breakdown, like literally a mental breakdown. And it wasn't because nothing that I couldn't manifest. A lot of times you feel like we could do things. But at some point, with all my might, I just couldn't get this one thing done. I remember this day I went out, Miss Munroe, and trying to get my car fixed. And I think I spent money on 4 records to get my car to one shop, to the next shop, to the next shop. And on my way home, after leaving 3 different mechanic shops, my car still broke down on me. on my way home, and I just had a mental breakdown because all I tried to do, like you say, in the physical, I remember my wife telling me, "Hey, D, snap out of this," like, because it could, like you say, sometimes it takes hold of you and you take it into the next day or the next week or next month, and sometimes a lot of persons don't snap out of it. They find themselves in that pity party celebration.
But again, if I don't end with nothing else, mental illness and mental disorders, mental illness is real.
Okay.
Okay. And even to hear that your wife said to you, snap out of it, we have to be careful with that. Because if you had broken a bone, or if you had a literal headache, migraine, I wouldn't tell you snap out of it. There's a process for your bone to be recovered and cured. Yes. If you have a headache, no. There's that's not gonna, no, I can't tell you just get over it. No, you're gonna take something and maybe take a pill or maybe rest. The light you may be sensitive to light, so you need to go in darkness, and then it goes away. So someone now who is dealing with their mental illness is real. So it's going to be very difficult for me to tell someone who is depressed, snap out of it.
So you're saying got to be sensitive to these issues and situations.
But you just have to be aware. It's gonna be hard to tell. It's almost rude and disrespectful to tell someone who is dealing with anxiety, calm down. Like, this is a real thing for them.
Good educating us on that.
Someone who is OCD, you can't tell them
stop.
No, stop. Exactly. Someone who's dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder, you can't tell them it's time for you to get over a trauma you went through 3, 4, 20 years ago. And so as we learn more about
educate us, my dear,
and mental illness, we are going to learn how to also notice our own personal symptoms, and then also notice the symptoms of others. And then it'll allow us to be sensitive to ourselves, to give ourselves a break, and also be sensitive to others and give others a break. And just not ignore. I think when we ignore symptoms and when we self-medicate, that's when it gets worse.
Okay.
And so I don't want people to be ignorant. I don't want people to just be doing and going about life because they just don't know. And if you know, one thing my dad did not like, he always said the greatest enemy to the kingdom was ignorance.
So true, there's ignorance.
And so our greatest enemy as human beings is two things: ignorance and the limitations we put on ourselves. And so those two things I want to help people to get over.
And I thank you for being here on thank you again for being here on Making an Impact, helping people, because you shared a whole lot of light, on the sensitive side, the insensitive side, how to combat a lot of stuff, because a lot of persons go through life and they are ignorant to the fact of people who are dealing with issues. Because even last year, when a lot of persons was dealing with job loss or loss of family members through COVID, it was almost like, okay, you lose a job, now get over it. Or you lose this, now get over it. And like hearing you speak about how to be sensitive to people, because a lot of persons aren't educated. And I think that's something you really need to help get out there, because a lot of persons, the stigma in therapy, so persons won't get educated, and the information out there people don't go after. Is there any way people can find you?
I am, yes, they can. I am all over social media. I have my website, charisamunroe.com. All of my social media handles, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, is Charisa Munroe and the number 1, Charisa Munroe 1, which I'm sure Deanna will put here on the screen. And again, visiting me, I try to be as interactive on these platforms as I possibly can, because again, I want to be available and I want to be accessible to people, but also, my work is very valuable. And so there comes a great investment at times, but then sometimes, even if you can't find me, there's so many resources out there. Google has become one of the greatest search engines in the world. So if you want to know about anything, you can just Google it. I mean, there are no excuses. Remember I said, one of the dangers or enemies of human beings are the limitations we put on ourselves. An excuse is one of those limitations. There is no excuse as to why we can't help educate ourselves, why we can't help educate others. And even when you're dealing with mental illness and mental disorders, one of the things that they encourage mental ill patients to do is to learn more about their own illness. If you have cancer, you the first thing people do is they go to Google. They go to Dr. Google, and they want to be able to tell the doctor, well, this is what I read. But the doctor says, yeah, that's what you read. But I've read. Exactly. So learn more about, man, why is my family member going through this? Addiction is a serious thing. So
Right.
people are dealing, like, these are mental illnesses. Substance abuse addiction, that's a mental illness, not a physical illness. It's more of a mental illness.
All right.
And what that means. And so, again, finding me is not hard. I'm on all social media platforms. But again, if you can't reach me, if you don't feel I'm responding quick enough and fast enough, please, there is so many mental health agencies out there where psychotherapy and counseling and therapists are available to help you get your mind right.
Right, you hear that? Help you get. See how she ended with our topic today. Again, here on Making an Impact TV, we're all about helping you. I'm bringing individuals and experts down in their field to be able to shed some light on the dark places that we might be ignorant to, because we all need light shine on us. I heard a lot of speakers, and even your dad says it a lot. If you're the smartest person in the room, leave that.
You in the wrong room.
You are in the wrong room.
Totally agree.
And so all we're trying to do is spread some light in the room. And I know, Miss Munroe, so before we close, I know you also have a book. I know they could find, guys, you could find on social media. And I know you have your book. You're an author. And so for persons, again, we're talking about getting your mind right. So do you want to talk about your book before we close?
2 seconds. If you are looking for something positive, remember I talked about, what you put into your gates, your eye gate, your air gate, your touch. Like, that's important to your mental health. If you're looking for something positive, if you're looking for positive affirmations, if you're looking for something to empower you to be able to go from what is an intention to an act, I encourage you to find this book. It's on Amazon. It's on my website. It's my 31-day devotional that I did shortly after I went through what I went through. And I wanted to put some empowerment affirmations in a place that people can have access to, because these few things helped me.
Okay.
And they are still helping me today. So I wrote this book for myself, but I also wrote it for you to, again, help you get your mind right.
So if you're watching, go to Miss Charisa Munroe 1 on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, charisamunroe.com, Amazon to purchase the book. Again, it's all about getting your mind right. 2021, let's get your mind right. Ms. Munroe, thank you for being here on Making an Impact TV. From everybody, we want to say thank you.
Thank you, D'Angelo, for having me. I have been honored. It has been a pleasure to educate and teach and make aware.
Right. I know you had a lot more to say, but hey, I'm glad we have to end it right here. Thank you for being a part.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hey guys, thank you for staying to the end of Making an Impact TV. Remember to like, share, subscribe. Make sure that you subscribe to be a part of the Making an Impact community. We also want to say thank you to Miss Munroe, who stopped on by to share some information, who enlightened us and enlightened me. Because a lot of things we take for joke, we take for granted, we take for help, just haphazard on a lot of issues. But she shared some light on some things that we were asleep on, because a lot of persons are dealing with mental health issues. And so we want to say thank you, Ms. Munroe, for stopping by, taking the time out of your day and being here on Making an Impact TV. If you're watching, we want to say thank you. Yeah, you. You. Thank you, guys. Thank you for stopping by, being a part of the Impact TV. It means so much to us here, for stopping by and just watching the broadcast. So if you feel that this information was worth sharing, share. Show your support. Hit the share button. If you don't think it was worth sharing, then leave a comment Say something. Tell us what you would like for us to talk about on one of our next up and coming broadcasts. We're open for comment and feedback. But again, thank you for being here on Making an Impact TV. And until next time, next week, same place, same time, we say thank you, like, share, subscribe. If I do my part and you do your part, we all can make an impact together. It's all about making an impact, and it's all about getting your mind right. Let's get your mind right, guys. So as you go out this week, remember, work on your mind. Time for you to show up. Let's show up with our minds right.